This edition of MacVoices is supported by Headspace. Meditation made simple. Visit headspace.com/MacVoices for a free 1-month trial. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is part 2 in a 2-part conversation with Jeff Carlson, actually more like a demo with Jeff Carlson, about webcams. In the first part, we talked about why Jeff wrote an article for a particular company and what led to his research in webcams, and showed off a couple different options. This time around, we look at a couple more options, talk sort of unintentionally about audio in relation to webcams, and get a few final thoughts on where you should be spending your money and what webcam you should be buying for whatever your purpose is. So we'll go right back to the discussion with Jeff.
No. I was going to say that's an excellent transition because the Brio, as I switch over, so one of the things that you'll find about these cameras are a lot of them are HD cameras, and that sounds great. But then you also have this class of 4K cameras, and it is kind of like the televisions. You're dealing with much greater resolution, and so the expectation is you'll get a lot more detail and a lot more quality. So let me switch over to the Brio. The Brio is a 4K. There we go. Come here. It is a 4K camera. And what's curious about 4K is that in, I would say, most situations, it doesn't matter, because streaming 4K of data, that's a lot of data to push over an internet pipe, unless you have like a really, really, really good connection. And in fact, Zoom, and I think maybe not Skype, because Skype is kind of old school, but I think, like Zoom will compress that image down anyway, just to give it better throughput. And so if you're thinking, I'm going to get a 4K camera because I'm going to look so much better, it might look better to you, but what gets sent out is probably going to be of a lower quality resolution. In fact, and one of the things that I found was, with the Logitech software, I know we're kind of jumping all around, but with the Logitech software, you can basically tell it to go into a 4K mode. And when I did that, it would either freeze or stutter, or it just had a hard time actually keeping up with a 4K connection. Even on my, again, this is last year's MacBook Pro. And so, if you're thinking, I really need 4K, this is going to be better, I'm going to spend an extra $120 for this, it may not be a really good investment, because you're really not going to get that added quality strictly in terms of resolution. If you're using this to do pre-recorded stuff, then 4K becomes more of an issue. When you're just recording, you're not streaming. But we're talking about streaming here. So this is the Brio, and let's see if I can. I don't know if I can point this out as much. And again, people who are going to be watching this on YouTube is probably going to be, kind of compressed, etc. But one of the things that I found about this, obviously, the Brio is much better than the C920, but it tends to give kind of a softened look, like my forehead does not look as old as I am. And it still has
that sells the camera right there, Jeff. The Ponce de Leon filter.
Yeah, but the problem is, if you turn on Zoom's what is it called, like smooth facial features software feature, and this, I would just look like a baby. It would be sad. This is definitely an improvement. I still think that there's some highlight on my forehead here, and this has a much wider field of view, and there's actually, you can control. There's basically 3 levels, so you can zoom in if you want. So that's kind of nice. But I was a little disappointed by the cost of it for what you get. Um, Again, because I have a fair amount of light here, it's working well. Without a lot of light, it tends to struggle more, and it just, I don't know. I was expecting a lot from this, and it didn't really live up to it for me.
So from my side, what I'm seeing is that you're not nearly as blown out. Yeah, there's a hot spot on your forehead,
Hmm.
but it's not horrible. There is definitely no blue cast like there was before.
Yeah, yeah. White balance is
It's
much better.
I will not say it's a warmer. I guess it's a warmer picture than it was, but it's not a warm picture like the first one. I'm not sure which zoom setting you have on, because now I can just barely see the curtains on the one side,
Right.
and now your microphone, just like with the other Logitech, is very present. Before, we could barely see the mic,
Hmm.
so different fields of view. This is definitely a superior camera to what we saw before. And again, there's no retouching or anything. In fact, that was something I did want to say, and you touched on it, Jeff, that in an ordinary MacVoices, I might go through and try to tweak the video so somebody looks a little better than they really were.
Hmm.
In this case, I'm just going to leave it as is, not going to touch anything. So the only thing that will happen to this image will be the compression that happens during the editing process and the uploading to YouTube, Facebook, or Vimeo.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make sure that you get as much, you see, folks, what I see as much as possible. And usually that ends up being a pretty good representation. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I would consider this, with the pricing, it's a little salty, but I would consider this a win.
Mm.
This is a
Okay.
pretty good camera.
Okay. Let's turn off the light and see what happens.
Okay. Okay.
Not terrible,
No, you're
but
a little more washed out.
a little more washed out. So it's the one of the things I did notice about this is it'll try to just sort of increase the exposure throughout, and so the general sort of washed out rather than having like that nice stark contrast from the other one. The window behind me completely, almost completely washed out. Again, the side of my face is brighter than I would like. It's still much better. And when you look at the article, one of the things that surprised me a bit is um, the, the resolution of my beard. Even when I had good lighting, um, it did a semi, I would say, an average job of of having it having like the hairs be individually visible. Right now, um, again, I can't quite see because I have a little preview window, but in most cases, like my beard is just kind of a a mass here, whereas when the lighting is better, you see a little bit more definition to it.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, again, I think that this would be a fine choice for, the average user who wants something a little bit better.
Yeah,
Um, if again, if you don't mind the price, and it's a dedicated it's a dedicated camera,
yeah,
webcam. So you set it up, you plug it in, and that's it. It comes on when you're doing web stuff, and it doesn't when you're not. So it may be an option, as opposed to what your point was with the iPhone. Having to set it up unless you just happen to have a spare one or an old one laying around.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of this is actually I had somebody write to me saying basically like yeah, I love using my phone, but that means every time I have to connect it and mount it. I have basically like a little tripod mount that's set up behind my computer right here that's holding this. So it's fairly easy to release the little clamp and put the phone in and all of that. So maybe it's the type of thing where if you're doing just like a morning check-in meeting, it's probably fine to do the camera that's inside. I keep looking at the wrong camera. That it's probably fine to use like maybe your laptop's camera, but then like say in the afternoon when you are talking to a VP or you're a teacher and you have a class or something like that, then maybe you would want to go to the extra step of mounting the iPhone and having it set up and all of that. So,
Right.
This is yet another one of those things where it really depends on your needs and what you find to be acceptable. And situations. Sometimes you just really need something that looks a lot better. Or maybe you have like an old phone or something that you can prop up and just leave there.
Yeah. So by now, folks have forgotten what the first camera looked like. So how about if we go back to the iPhone?
Okay.
So there's the Brio, and we're going to the iPhone.
Yes. I love that Skype makes it a 3-step process just to do anything. I'm sorry, that wasn't really nice. Actually, I'm going to take a quick detour just for a moment, and this is.
Oh,
this is the camera built into my MacBook Pro.
Okay.
Which I didn't center it because it was a little bit in the way. But anyway, just as a quick idea, with light, it doesn't look terrible. But
right now, before you go, you've got a little bit of a hot spot on the forehead. The image looks pretty good. It's definitely a warmer image. I can see some of the drapes. I can't see the whole thing. So the field of vision may be not quite as wide. But it's, and again, and it may be a good intermediate stop because now we'll go to the iPhone and see how much of a difference there is between what's built in and what's not. Because hey, it's a perfectly reasonable decision for you to say what's built into my Mac laptop is good enough, if that is good enough for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also just noticed, and we weren't going to get into this, but I just noticed that Skype has been recording from my AirPods instead of my microphone.
Oh.
Yeah, because Skype. So I'm going to switch to a microphone, and that's going to give me a better sound.
Yeah, definitely much more present. I should have caught that. Sorry.
That's okay. No, that's okay, because that actually lets us address that question early on when we're talking about audio. Basically, my best advice is no matter what webcam you use, if you have an external microphone, set that up and use that all the time. Because even though, I think both of these Logitech ones have stereo microphones, or they'll have like 2 microphones. The iPhone has a microphone. They're still a couple of feet away from me, and you're going to get more room noise. You're going to get more of everything. And so if you have the ability, even if it's just an inexpensive microphone that you can sit next to you on the table, your audio is going to be so much better. And even with a half decent video quality, I would bet that the people who you're talking to will like to hear you better if you have some sort of a microphone like this.
And unintentionally, Jeff has just demonstrated that even with the AirPods, now we didn't do a comparison for the camera mics, but even the AirPods were not terrible by any means. So I mean, the external mic is definitely better, but so because with the AirPods, I don't think I've never experienced it. You don't get so much of the ambient room noise. It's you're a lot more present. So yeah,
right,
good point.
Right. And because they're right here rather than way over here.
Right.
So now that I've switched, we have to start all over, right?
Yeah. Well, now we're back to the iPhone.
Back to the iPhone.
And so again, I'm not seeing any drapes at all. So I had no idea drapes were there.
Mm-hmm.
Your other window, I'm just barely seeing the edge of.
Yeah.
We barely see the very top of the windscreen on your microphone. So again, it's and these are all at about the same distance. And Jeff, how far from your face would you estimate the cameras are?
So I am. It's literally about arm's length. So
Okay.
what, 2.5 feet,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
Can't measure distances very well.
Yeah.
Not too far. And in fact, with this phone and this camera, this is the only option. There's no wider version.
Right.
I think the like iPhone 11 Pro and 12 Pro, I think they have slightly wider fields of view just for the main camera. I would have to look that up. Versus, like I could, if I had my iPhone 12 Pro, I could put that in and use the ultra wide, but that would be,
Right.
way too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we'd see all the mess that's in your office.
You don't want to see that.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm fine revealing that behind me is a stack of blankets and a beanbag that my daughter had built a reading fort in. So, we're
Hey, no,
here
nothing
in
wrong
my
with that.
professional studio.
Yes. Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Headspace. Meditation made simple. With Headspace, it's easy to actually accomplish that New Year's resolution and build a life-changing meditation practice with mindfulness that works for you on your schedule, anytime, anywhere. That anytime, anywhere part is one of my favorite things about Headspace. Not that any of us are moving around a great deal at this point, but having the flexibility of when may be more important than ever as we all juggle our work-at-home schedules with family obligations, time zone challenges, and competing priorities. Headspace does what it does through their easy-to-use app that lets you pick the kind of meditation that fits your needs and your time. Whether you are trying to improve the quality of your sleep, want to get your morning started off right, or are just trying to relieve the stress of the day, Headspace is the answer. Their guided meditation will help you to get where you want to go. You deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/MacVoices. That's headspace.com/MacVoices for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditations for every situation. That's the best deal offered right now. So head over to headspace.com/MacVoices today. Thanks to Headspace for their support of MacVoices.
That's how this works. Let me turn the light off here so we can see what the iPhone does.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find the switch. And also, actually, the sun has gone down a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit darker. But the skin tone, I think, is better. We're still getting that darkness, but there's no hot spot. There's some definition that you can see out that window. So it's compensating for the light coming from there, even though you can only barely see it in frame here.
Right. So at the end of the day, the iPhone is just a better camera.
Absolutely.
Just the innards of the iPhone cameras are better than the other options, because if don't turn the light off again. But if Jeff had called me and had that light off and everything, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. I might have said for purposes of this, hey, Jeff, you're a little dark. But if Jeff was calling me, for a business meeting, I would have not thought twice about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if it seems like we're obsessing over this a little bit, well, maybe it's because we are.
That's what we do.
Well, that's what we do. And I think that there are at least a number of you out there that kind of do the same thing. You want to get the best bang for your buck, and you kind of want to know what you're getting before you get it. And so that's why I was anxious to have, Jeff come in and talk a little bit about this and talk through it and show you just some comparisons of what you can get. Stock. And yeah, the webcam settings, that's something I've used a number of times. If my light isn't quite right here or something, I will tweak it, because that's a whole lot easier than doing it any other way. Mm-hmm. So a lot of options here, but, so buyer beware.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I would say definitely go read the article. And, because again, it has lots of side by side comparisons and a video comparison of, I had four cameras set up at one point and was running them all in the same screen. And, in fact, I think that there's actually a picture of, like it took me a couple of hours, honestly, to like figure out how to Tetris all the cameras so that they were all roughly in the same, coming from the same point. You notice, just the way I have this here set up, the Logitech is a bit over to my right, and so that's why you got so much more of that window, and just that'll give you a sense of how these perform, at their just native resolutions, and just out of the box what these look like, and how important the lighting is, and just all the different options. Basically, like I went through a lot of this so that you don't have to, because I think a lot of people maybe they're looking at several more months of working from home, and they've been fine with what they had, or maybe they just want to improve, something. So this has lots of fodder, and then I also go into some speculation about as I was saying, the companies, and like why haven't they improved their technology in a drastic way? And I think it's just because, I mean, in many ways, this is a brand new market for them. I don't think they ever expected that there would be such a demand for webcams, because it's always been this niche. And literally in the process of a month to 2 months, suddenly people were like, oh, well, I'm working from home. I can't go anywhere. I have meetings all day and they need to see my face. So I need to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and kids, are having to do school, both young kids and right up through college, are having to do it. So, I'll make sure I have links in the show notes to not just Jeff's article, but also to everything we mentioned, including the webcams, because it's your decision, folks. Figure out what you want, what you need, what you can afford, what makes sense to you, and then go forth. But Jeff, I needed to comment, because we've talked a number of times in the show about this with you and with some other digital photographers. The lack of computational photography that the major manufacturers are engaging in. I mean, they're watching their markets dissolve, and they don't seem to be doing anything about it. And I get it. Apple as a computer company probably is a lot better equipped to address some of that than they are as a camera company. But still, you would think they'd be fighting back a little. So it's kind of disappointing. And I think this is an endorsement for computational photography. Forget the webcam, just computational photography with what's going on with this picture. So the optimistic side of me is likes to picture a bunch of data scientists and people who are like, okay, we need to do this, and they're working on it now. I don't know if that's actually the case, or maybe Apple has hired all the really good people to do this. I've heard that there are hundreds of people at Apple that work on this, and so maybe that's it, and maybe it's just there are companies that they don't really need to do it, and things are going to be just fine. I mean, this other camera, I had to look it up. It's this Adwaita, ADWAITA 4K USB 2.0 webcam. I basically went on Amazon and I was like, what is the cheapest 4K camera that I can find? And it doesn't have autofocus. So if you're too close to the camera, you're blurry. If you're too far back, you're blurry. Like a company like that, they probably just got the specs from somewhere else and packaged their own components. And, for them,
they sell it for, I think maybe I got it for $50. They're going to make $30 profit, and that's perfectly fine. So, it's just this giant spectrum of imaging and need that have collided in a way that I don't think 2 years ago anybody would have foreseen. And it leads to us having a discussion like this about, hey, why are webcams in general so bad, and what can we do about it? So
yeah. Well, I think I'd like to think we've given folks, first of all, we've educated them a little bit and given them some decent options to go and explore. And so folks, go forth and explore. Jeff, thank you. Thank you for the time for the article. Thank you to time for doing this, because I think it's one thing to look at stills. It's a whole nother one to look at the moving pictures, that this is how you're going to appear to your customers, your clients, whatever, and just be aware that, you can look like you really know what you're doing, or maybe not so much, and it may not be important. So who knows? Who knows? Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm going to add one last thing to this, is that this isn't something we really talked about, but you're right. Like having that motion as an example is so important, because, for example, one of the big surprises was with that Kaio Razer Kaio camera that I had. Does a pretty great job. In general, some things are fine, but if you move a little bit, like if I move a little bit forward or I move a little bit over here, a lot of cameras, like I think this does a pretty good job of sort of keeping me in focus, and that's some of Apple's person recognition and like all that kind of stuff. With that other camera, if you move a little bit, it basically like goes out of focus and then re-grabs focus. And so even though the image, the color, the resolution looks fine, if you're on a meeting with somebody for an hour where the image is basically bouncing every few seconds as the person moves, as it tries to reacquire focus, it's going to drive you crazy, or it's going to drive the people that you work with crazy. And so again, that's another thing that you have to consider. It's not just looking at it as I tend to do photographically, as, okay, where's the light? Is this blown out? Is the color okay? You've got, like how is it going to react for somebody who, gesticulates and moves around as they talk? So that's another thing. So
yeah. You would think it'd be a lot easier than this, but it's, if you're going to dig into it and want to do it right,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Jeff, thanks again. Really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I think this is valuable. I certainly haven't just enjoyed, the going in back and forth, because I haven't spent all that money on those webcams. And before somebody writes in and asks, I'm not using a webcam. I'm using a DSLR through a converter that turns it into a webcam. So that's I gave up my C920 quite some time ago. So that's what I'm using. And I know usually when we're talking to Jeff, he's using a DSLR with that same kind of, well, maybe, Jeff, I guess you're using the built-in or the manufacturer's software that turns it into a webcam.
I think the times that we've been talking, when I've used my Fuji mirrorless camera, I also have like a little converter card box that did that. And I think because at the time Fuji hadn't yet released its software for the Mac, so even if you don't have like an adapter, but you have an old camera, I believe all the major manufacturers now have free software that you can download, that just plugs into the USB port or the HDMI port, and use your camera as a webcam. So again, you got an older camera that's been sitting in a drawer. If it works, if it's on the list of what they support, that's also a really good option. And then you've got the options of having depth of field and different lenses, and that's another whole thing, which I think maybe we covered once before, but yeah. And that's dangerous, because I know my experience has been, they wrote that software, and all the cameras that they support are the ones with commas in their prices. And that's there is that.
Unless you're strange like me or you do a whole lot, don't buy a DSLR just as a webcam.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go out and buy a $12,000 cinema camera that I can just have sitting on my desk that I use No, I'm not going to do that at all.
And then we can count the whiskers in your beard. That'll be the resolution will be so good.
It's really the only reason to do this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Jeff, thank you again. We'll get you back on. I don't know what we'll be talking about next, but it's always interesting.
It's always great to be on. Thank you so much.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Again, please check the show notes for this one so you can get Jeff's article, links to all the products and software we mentioned, and then go out and make an informed decision, even if it's no decision at all and you just use what you got. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.